I extracted this audio um, of Dr. Bryan Ardis, and saying some interesting claims about how nicotine has antiviral properties, but don't believe anything we hear in this video. May not be true, but you know what? You just listen and don't believe anything you hear, but check it out.
Primary antidote is, and referencing in the documentary, is how nicotine from the beginning was the antidote to COVID-19. And so that's what the antidote title references. So I have actually been asked to fly around the world. I have literally just got back from London a month ago. I've been asked to go to Belgium. I just got invited on Friday to go to Ireland and speak. I've been invited to go to South Africa and speak. I'm all over the place educating people with this really exciting topic. I didn't realize so many people were going to be excited, but it is, what else do we not know about nicotine? Because we've all been told our whole lives, including you, Laura Lynn, and all your followers, it's a very hard thing to break when you've been indoctrinated and pounded 24 hours a day with a lie that nicotine is addictive. And just so you know, your audiences will be shocked by this. I continue to shock the world, it appears. Nicotine is not addictive. In fact, all 7 large tobacco giant CEOs in 1994 were asked to come into the United States Congress and in the National Capitol building swear under oath, and I have it in my presentation at the Dr. Ardis Show, swear under oath that nicotine was not addictive. And in April of 1994, all 7 of them, in a 25-second clip I show in my presentation, nicotine is not addictive, nicotine is not addictive. And then the FDA 4 months later came out and lied to the whole world and said, we don't care what the tobacco head said, nicotine is addictive, and we're going to make sure it's labeled all over every tobacco product. That has nicotine in it. We're going to make sure everybody knows to avoid tobacco and nicotine because it's an addictive substance and it causes cancer. Well, unbeknownst to you, Laura Lynn, not only was this a cure for COVID-19, in fact, it was such a cure for COVID, I show in our presentations that a hospital in Wisconsin in 2021 had a whole floor of COVID-19 current smokers who were diagnosed with COVID, put on remdesivir, put on that hospital protocol for COVID, and then when 5 of the smokers died, a medical doctor said, well, it's being reported around the world that smokers are the least likely to die from COVID. I wonder what will happen since these people are in a hospital and you're not allowed to smoke while in the hospital and they're on a vent, so they can't smoke. This doctor said, I wonder what happens if I put a nicotine patch on all of them. Laura Lynn, 100% of all of them were cured of COVID and went home in 5 days. That was in 2021. Nicotine was always the antidote. It always was the cure. But to shock your audiences, this is why everybody's asking me to fly around the world and educate them on this. In Canada, 1 month after my Watch the Water documentary came out with Stu Peters, Trudeau and your buddies there decided they were going to start banning either vaping e-cigarettes or attacking cigarettes in general and tobacco products. In fact, Canada wasn't alone. Within 1 month of my documentary, I listed nicotine was the antidote at the credits. The United Kingdom, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, and America, all in unison in the same week, said by the year 2030, we're going to make nicotine and tobacco products commercially unavailable to our citizens. We will ban these agents from those countries. And there's a reason why they're doing this. Would it shock you, Laura Lynn, if I told you that nicotine by itself has been proven to reverse, prevent, and even cure people with Parkinson's disease, Alzheimer's disease, multiple sclerosis, ulcerative colitis, inflammation of your bowel diseases, arthritis? Nicotine could be a cure for. How many doctors have told your senior citizens with arthritis, you should wear a nicotine patch or chew nicotine gum or dip snuff? Have they ever told you that? It's amazing. They have not told you that. And there's a reason why they haven't told you. They just keep selling you drugs and prescribing you drugs because they don't want you to know that inside of the tobacco plant, and not only in the tobacco plant, is a nutrient called nicotine. It has also been proven, Laura Lynn, that nicotine by itself can reverse and dissolve brain tumors called glioblastomas in less than 72 hours. And those studies were conducted during the pandemic. I found that interesting. Why are y'all studying nicotine and turbo cancers and reversing them with nicotine during COVID while everybody's getting these vaccines? All right, did you know also that nicotine patch studies have been done with autistic adults and children? And they found that their violent and antisocial behaviors completely remit in 6 days or less. Isn't that amazing? Well, how many people are prescribing nicotine patches to their autistic patients? None that I've ever heard of. So I continue to show research surrounding all these various topics and how it's been shown beneficial. You know what? I was in a car being driven to an event this weekend in Tennessee, and the driver, who also opened his home for a VIP dinner, decides to tell me that he's been a type 1 diabetic for years, is insulin resistant, until he saw my presentations on how nicotine has helped cure people of type 1 diabetes, which is what he had. And he put nicotine patches on him, and he is no longer insulin resistant. And his insulin is now breaking down his blood sugar, and he's reducing his diabetes medications just in a couple weeks. So I want to make sure, before everybody runs away from this topic and says, I cannot listen to nicotine, it's addictive, I'm scared of it, I just need to ask you, Laura Lynn, did you know that nicotine is second highest in content by weight inside of eggplants, second only to the tobacco plants? Did you know that the third highest containing nicotine vegetable on earth is tomatoes? Every red tomato that you've ever eaten has nicotine in it.
Wow.
Did you know that green tomatoes have 10 times the amount of nicotine as red tomatoes? Did you know that bell peppers, cauliflower, celery, zucchini, all nightshade vegetables have tons of nicotine? In fact, that whole group of foods, nightshade vegetables, has the second highest amount of nicotine, only second to tobacco. Now, this one should shock you. Have you ever eaten a potato chip, or mashed potatoes, or a baked potato, or french fries, Laura Lynn?
I have.
Did you know that white potatoes have nicotine in them? And every time you've eaten potatoes, you're sucking down nicotine. Now, my question for you is why do they continue to make us so scared of nicotine and tobacco if it's in our veggies? And I'm going to go ahead and explain this to you. If it is so in Canada, as it is in the United States, when someone is diagnosed with an inflammatory condition, the medical doctors are trained to tell their patient, Mary, you have something that ends with itis, colitis, pancreatitis, arthritis. You have something with itis on it, meaning you're in pain. And then they will say to you, we need to put you on steroids to suppress your inflammation. And then they will say this in the United States. Mary, since you've been diagnosed now with arthritis, you have to avoid all nightshade vegetables in the future. Now, the truth is, if they actually ate those vegetables, the nightshade veggies, nicotine in those plants has more anti-inflammatory properties than pro-inflammatory properties by a lot. So if you actually consume the nightshade vegetables, organic version is best. It will have the highest amounts of nicotine. And I just want to ask you all, how come the world's never told you that nicotine's in all those other veggies? How come they only continue to tell you it's in tobacco? And then how come they keep scaring you from using anything that has an addictive substance called nicotine? Well, just so you know, if nicotine's addictive, you would be addicted to eggplants. And if you ever ate an eggplant, you would wake up at night sweats thinking you need more eggplants. And how many of you have ever heard your boss ever be asked by another coworker for a celery break? Because you're just too addicted to celery. You just can't get over the nicotine addiction in your celery and cauliflower and zucchini. The truth is, nicotine is not addictive. You're never going to be addicted to those vegetables. You cannot be addicted to it. Harvard, the University of Harvard, figured out in 2015 and published a study online, peer-reviewed and published. And I show the whole world this over and over and over. They confirmed in 2015 and published that nicotine alone does not make tobacco products addictive at all. In fact, another scientist came forward in 2012 and said, actually, nicotine makes humans and all mammals aversive to nicotine, and we want to push it away. We don't want it. It's actually a deterrent. This is why they put nicotine, literally powdered nicotine, on plants to keep bugs and insects from coming around the plants. Nicotine is a deterrent. It is an irritant. Nobody wants it. So Harvard read 7 million pages in 2015 of tobacco giant documents to find out how did they make tobacco products addictive if it's not nicotine. This was just 5 years before the pandemic. And they found out that the FDA has approved, since the 1970s, all tobacco giants can add 599 man-made chemicals to their tobacco products, of which 15 are called pyrazines, and Harvard confirmed in 2015 these man-made chemicals called pyrazines are why tobacco products are addictive. It's not nicotine. And then even said in their paper, FDA, we expect you should start regulating pyrazines over nicotine. So this is the level of lying, pervasive lying, propaganda you've seen around tobacco since 1994, leading up to the pandemic in 2020. They needed the majority of people in the world not using tobacco products because they have the highest amount of nicotine. And they knew the whole goal for the pandemic was to get an injection in everybody's arm around the world, and the only way people would fall for that crap is if they got sick. Well, if everybody was using tobacco products, the majority of human beings weren't going to get sick from their spike protein, venom-laced virus, they wanted to call it, because nicotine was the antidote to those spike protein/venom proteins. So this was the protective measure there. For the rest of my life, I will wear a 3 milligram nicotine patch because not only does nicotine cure those diseases, I've actually learned over the last 2 years that every virus on Earth is beaten with nicotine. And I'm talking influenza, I'm talking coronaviruses, measles virus, rabies virus, polio virus, HIV virus. They're all scientific studies confirming that nicotine's the antidote to all of those. You know what I find interesting? When you get to rabies and HIV, they actually say that rabies virus and HIV has a spike protein on it, and every scientist writes it is homologous to snake venom proteins. And nicotine's the antidote to those also.